Brett's our Chief Technology Officer. He's also one of our authors of our Well Lifecycle Manager application.
And we'll start with the three most critical industry value pillars as we see it. Then I'm going to discuss how some of our leading customers are approaching today's challenges to seize upon those pillars. And I'll include some specific stories regarding their strategies and some of the outcomes. And finally, I'm going to share how they're using products and technologies from Seven Lakes to beat the current industry norms and standards and to overcome today's challenges. We don't have to go much past the front page of the news to see what oil prices and the geopolitical uncertainties of today have done to create a fierce market for you. But what we're also seeing in this market is that the successful leaders are leveraging technology today to squeeze value out of every asset. With cost overruns occurring in the majority of capital projects, at least from what we see and know, with lifting costs on the rise and with unplanned downtime over roughly 10% on average, there's a ton of room for improvement, and we have the right solutions to help. We see successful leaders focused on these three main value pillars, and the first is boosting capital productivity. So on average, roughly 60%, almost 58% of capital projects face cost overruns. And in fact, capital spending is sky high, up almost 25% in 4 years, from a little over $500 billion to almost $750 billion, as you can see here. But the return on that capital employed hasn't kept up. In fact, not even close. In fact, it's actually gone the other way, slipping from 15% to 8% over roughly that same time period. Getting more return on every dollar that you spend is a lot easier said than done, but it's critical to survive in conditions like what we see today. When we examine our leading customers, we find that those cost overruns are closer to only about 2% of their projects. In fact, one of our customers with about 30,000 wells just this quarter announced a $250 million reduction in capital spend as an example of some of the success that we're seeing by employing some of the technologies and products that Seven Lakes has to offer. So the second pillar is reducing cost. And this is definitely not a number that you want rising right now, and yet lifting costs are rising an average of about 10% year over year. At the same time, on the people side, we expect to see roughly 50% of the workforce retiring over the course of just the next few years, and that's valuable or maybe even priceless knowledge that's just walking out the door, and it's going to be very hard to replace, at least without employing some technology. Over the past 10 years in the industry, on average, there's been a wildly disproportionate increase in capital expended versus the resulting increase in production, roughly 25% to 5%. I mean, in grade school, we'd be failing, obviously, right? And out of roughly 12% of that production that's lost for various reasons, about 2/3 of that stems from controllable circumstances like unplanned downtime, which accounts for about 8% of the total. However, we hear our top customers telling us a very different story. Starting with a smaller portion of unplanned downtime to begin with, like around 5%, and able to cut that roughly in half down to about 2%, leveraging some of the technologies that we're delivering. We also get consistent feedback in our executive interviews that the right dose and the right format of detailed data can demonstrably enable these customers to boost their production returns. So in studying our customers, what we found is that they're winning this game of business outcomes because all of their efforts are underscored by really a single theme, which is creating ownership of this data in the field. More than anything, we see that our customers are placing a high premium on serving up just the data that leads to action, without field users having to dig and struggle for it. One of the field superintendents that we spoke to recently, a gentleman named Monty, said it maybe best. He said, "We've got all this stinking data in all these databases that the average guy can't use, and we don't have time to learn. But the dashboard makes it easy." And he said, "We'll be ruined if we have to do something different." We were desperate because people were handcuffed from viewing cost data. People said we had ERP, but it isn't easy to use, so we relied on email and Excel spreadsheets floating around. Now everybody has the ability to get quick data, trend all of it, and get right down to the invoice level. In analytics user group training, one of the trainees drilled down from the dashboard, caught a duplicate invoice, and saved the company $400,000. True story. These customers are also able to take, and just like we were talking about with the panel, they're able to take and this is really critical, siloed functions where users typically are scared to share information. And they're creating sort of a healthy internal competition using fast, centralized, and very visual KPI goalposts. A production engineer, for example, from another customer told us, these dashboards actually match up across the board. This was a big thing for LOS in production. They keep everybody on the same page, execs and field. The breadcrumb trail helps let you know exactly where you are. So instead of taking 2 days to figure out number source, you can get straight to the answer. So if data can mean that much to your numbers, then data is your oil. We said that a minute ago too. And what we found was that our leading customers are treating it just like that. The number one thing we hear is that everyone needs to be looking at the same data, not what different groups are creating in silos and that doesn't match up. We believe that in order to trust the data across the company, operators have to be able to pull data from the exact same source through one common dashboard. Simple effort that our customers are making is to bring in enterprise applications that actually feel like modern consumer applications. Imagine that. Now that means moving away from the notion of needing, power users who are comfortable and savvy with more traditional and complex systems, and bringing in something that any user can use. All our pumpers love FDG. It's the first time we've had an enterprise app that's this easy and fun to use. It's a breeze to set up and assign routes in the field. It's way more configurable than any system we've looked at. We can configure the app the way our pumpers understand things. We can create our own readings and attributes for non-production data within minutes, and we no longer have to wait months for the vendor to develop it for us. Powerful technology with great impact shouldn't require a lot of training, shouldn't require power user groups, shouldn't require custom coding and long implementation cycles. And this is a big part of what we're about at 7 Lakes. Alongside industry leaders who can and will succeed in any market, we've built analytic, workflow, and general business apps that fuel best practices in a unique way, tailor-made to fit the oil and gas industry. Our analytics solutions incorporate leading best practices to give users data that they can act upon now, with drill down capability to view documents like tickets and invoices, with snapshots of prioritized visual goalposts, and one central place where all levels of the organization can monitor results. We can drive incredible value. And we offer these things in the areas of AFE, LOS, well production and profitability, GA, vendor spend, and even more. Incorporate leading best practices to give users data quality that they can trust, with seamless integration to existing company systems, fully configurable and automated data workflows, and validation points to ensure that departments have complete control over data going both in and out. Founded in 2009, a little over 60 employees today and growing rapidly. 4 offices, 3 here in the US, as well as some development in India. And we raised $20 million earlier this year, which is being funneled into these products to accelerate the pace and to drive even more value. What I wanted to leave you with is, at the end of the day, 7 Lakes, we're really data guys and girls. We dig, we gather, we build, we scrub, we sync, and we visualize it to give you the most actionable, the most integrated, and the most intuitive consumer-like technology experience possible. All of this, like we said at the beginning, so that you can focus on squeezing operational value out of every one of your assets. We've worked with many companies already, and we look forward to talking to you further and to bringing these solutions to your company soon. And we thank you very much for coming today.
We're going to have some stations for some demonstrations of some of the applications that Brett was talking about today, and feel free to mingle. Y'all can stop being quiet now, too.